You walk through the door at the end of the day and there is nothing left, not exhausted from something that was yours, emptied out by something that was not, because you gave it all in the wrong place. And the thing that is wild, you gave it to people who were not even waiting for it the way you thought they were. That is what we're talking about today. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Lisa Freefeather. I'm a priestess, a mystic, and practically speaking, I'm someone who's a proponent that women understand how they actually work emotionally, energetically, and practically. So they stop hemorrhaging the best of themselves and start building a life that actually belongs to them. Subscribe if that's a conversation you have been looking for. All right. Let me just name what we're all carrying. There's a version of this that we have normalized so completely that we don't question it anymore. You wake up, you get yourself ready, and probably someone else too. You move through the commute, the meetings, the performance of competence that's required just to be taken seriously in certain rooms. You hit the midday slump and push through it. You stay a little later because leaving on time somehow still reads as not committed enough. And then you come home. Home needs something too. Home has its own list. Home has people in it. And these people haven't seen you all day long. And you're trying. You genuinely are. But you're showing up at that table already completely spent. And then you wonder, why do I feel so disconnected from my own life? That's not a character flaw. That's not a discipline problem. That's not even something a better morning routine could fix. That is a structural problem, and it deserves a structural answer. Okay. I want to tell you about a conversation I had with a male friend not long ago. I was talking about my work. I'm a solopreneur, and at one point, I was working primarily with male clients, men with professional careers who wanted help building their legacy through a side business. And I noticed something I couldn't unsee once I saw it. I was going hard for them. In basketball terms, I was going hard in the paint, full effort, full presence, full emotional investment in their vision. And this went beyond being, good at my job. It was a genuine emotional connection to their projects. I wanted to see it through the way you want to see something through when it matters to you personally. And I had to ask myself, where did that come from? Why was I showing up like this for someone else's legacy while my own was waiting? That conversation with my friend cracked something open because he helped me see that what I was doing was not like this exceptional dedication. It was what women do. It's what we've always done. We bring our whole selves, our communal, relational, building energy into whatever space we inhabit. That energy is real and it's powerful. So the question is, where are you directing it? And whether the space receiving it was designed to receive it or to consume it. I'm a daughter and granddaughter of the Great Migration. There are layers in my conditioning that go deep: cultural, historical, spiritual. I've spent years doing my personal work on getting curious about those layers instead of reacting from them. And what I kept coming back to is this: the exhaustion is not the problem, the exhaustion is the information. I'm going to take you somewhere before I bring you back to the workplace. Okay? Would that be all right? Because to understand what is happening now, you need to remember what was happening before. I use that word remember deliberately, not learn, remember. So there was a time, and this is not mythology. This is documented human history when communities were organized around feminine. Matrifocal does not mean women ruled over men. It simply means that the community was oriented around the mother, around the hearth, around the relational center that held everyone together. Resources flowed through her. Decisions about the community were made in this relationship to her. Children were raised inside of a web of women, aunts, grandmothers, neighbors, sisters, not one isolated woman doing it alone in a house she leaves every morning to go to work to perform competence for strangers. Work was not separate from community. You worked with your people, you built with your people. The energy that you put into your garden came back to your table. The energy you put into your neighbor's home came back when yours needed tending. The exchange was circular, was communal, was alive. That's the original design of feminine energy, not depletion, but circulation. I have a memory that lives in my body around this. My father was raised on a farm, and I, his city daughter, visited the farm once. And I remember standing there with a bowl, trying to feed the hogs, taking my time, trying to figure out like where are the bowls? And those hogs were not patient. They were vocal. They were slamming up against the fence. They had their opinions about how long I was taking. So my father walked up. He looked up the situation. He climbed up on top of the fence, sat down, took the bowl from me, and just threw it in. Yeah, food landing on their backs, food landing in the mud. The hogs were happy. Problem solved. That was my education. That was the moment I understood that there's a way of knowing that you only get from living inside of something. See, my father, he didn't have to think about it. He just knew. And I, removed by one generation and living in the city, had to be shown. And that's what I mean when I talk about what we've lost proximity to. Not just the land, the knowing that comes from being in relationship with it. The women in those communities were not managing life from a distance. They were inside of it. And that's the energy I'm talking about when I say when design something different than what we're currently doing with ourselves. Now I want you to feel a distance between that what most of us are walking into every Monday morning. Because somewhere in the long disruption of indigenous ways of living through colonization, through forced migration, through the redesign of society around industrial production, women's energy got redirected. The communal structure, it did not disappear. The need for it did not go away, but the container it poured into changed completely. So instead of building your community, you're now building a company. Instead of your energy circulating back to your table, it circulates back to a quarterly report. Instead of a web of women holding the center together, there is one woman, you, trying to hold everything at both ends. And the body does not understand why it's so tired because the body remembers the original design even when the mind has forgotten it. The body knows it was built for circulation, not extraction. And an extraction, even when it's politely called employment, will eventually run the well dry. Now, This is not blaming. This is not about blaming the workplace. It is about understanding the mismatch. You were not built for this structure. This structure was built to benefit from what you naturally carry. And once you feel the difference between those two things, you cannot unfeel it. So when you walk into the office and you find yourself going all in, all the way in for a project that is not yours, that is not passion. That's your communal nature looking for a place to land. It will land anywhere. And it has always landed anywhere people needed it. The question you're being invited to ask today is this the right place for it? Here's a layer that I think hits hardest, especially for melanated women in this country, in the United States. We were taught across generations, across households, across Sunday dinners and school hallways that we have to be excellent. Not just good, excellent. Twice as good. Visible in the right ways and visible in the wrong ways. Perform at a level that cannot be questioned because the margin for error given to us was always small. And I am not here to argue with the wisdom of the women who taught us that. They were navigating a real landscape with real stakes. That guidance kept people safe, and I honor that. And I did my own experiment. Quietly over time, I started paying attention to whether the performance was landing the way I assumed that it was, whether the excellence was being received the way I was giving it, whether the people I was performing for were even tracking me the way I thought they were. What I found was they were not. Now, it wasn't because they were malicious, but because they were inside of their own world, their own conditioning, their own lens. The story I was performing for was largely a story I was telling myself over and over again, which means I was spending an enormous amount of energy on a performance with no real audience. Imagine that. So pause here for a second and sit with that. Because if that's true for you too, and I suspect it is, then the question becomes, where could all of that energy actually go? All right, drop a comment right now and tell me, what does that performance cost you? I want to know. I want to know what comes up when you hear that. Yeah. I want to tell you a moment that happened inside of a workshop I was facilitating for an educational company. I was there as a workshop facilitator, professional, structured, holding the container, the role we required. And somewhere in the room, I saw a woman and I knew, like the way that she needed something that was not quite on the agenda. So I stepped outside the facilitator role and I spoke to her as a priestess. I said, your child is watching you and they don't see work and reward. They see work and misery. That landed. But here's the part that matters. It landed because trust had been built first. I hadn't just walked in and said the hard thing. I had to earn the right to say it by being present with her before the moment had arrived. That is what I want for you in this video. Not a confrontation, a truth that lands because you already feel it. Here's what actually happens when you leave all of it at work. We come home and we have a version of presence that's available, but it's the leftover version, the running on fumes version, the I love you, but I can't do one more thing version. And the people who need the most real version of us, our children, our partners, our actual community, they are getting the remainder. And then we feel guilty about that, which costs more energy, which means we go back to work the next day already behind. This is the cycle. Now, I want to say something about Gen Z because I think they're pointing at something important without always having the language for it. They are looking at this system and saying, what exactly is the return here? Wages have not kept pace. The cost of everything else has. The promise of loyalty and reward has not materialized the way it was supposed to. So why would we give ourselves to this? See, that's not laziness. That's a pattern recognition. And the instinct deserves respect. Your energy is a resource, a real one. And like any resource, it deserves to be directed with intention, not automatically poured into whatever container is in front of you. Your community needs it. Your home needs it. You need it. So, what does this actually look like? I'm not telling you to quit your job. Please. No, I am not telling you to stop being good at what you do. You can still perform your role well. You can still show up with confidence and care. What I'm inviting you to do is bring cognition to it. Bring awareness to the moment when you're about to give more than the job requires. Not because you're genuinely passionate in that moment, but the because the conditioning is automatic. The practice is learning to notice the difference between the two. So ask yourself in that moment, is this investment going towards something that is mine? Or is this my communal energy automatically flowing into a structure that was built to receive it? That is not rhetorical. Sit with it and lean back. The lean back is not about doing less. It's about recalibrating where your full self goes. It's a practice of leaving work at work, not the task, but the life force. Saving something for the table you come home to, for the relationships that are actually building something you'll live inside of. And it starts small. It starts with noticing. It starts with not sending that extra email when the workday is done, not volunteering for the extra thing when your tank is already at half. Letting a meeting be finished when it's finished and not extending yourself past the actual boundary of that exchange. You were not built for the corporation. The corporation was built to benefit from you. Those are two completely different things. And once you feel a difference in your body, in your energy level, and how much you have left when you walk through your front door, you will not be able to unfeel it. That is where the homeostasis starts to come back, not from a supplement, not from a vacation, from reclaiming what was never supposed to leave you in the first place. I want to leave you with this. You're not tired because you need more sleep, and you probably do. You are not empty because that's what a job well done is supposed to feel like. You've been given your full self, your building energy, your relational energy, your deepest communal gifts to a system that was designed to receive them and not return them. That is not a character flaw. That is information. And information is the beginning of choice. You get to choose where the best of you goes. You get to build a practice around protecting it. You get to come home with something left, not as a luxury, but as a right. That is the permission slip I want to hand you today. not out, back, toward yourself, toward people, toward the life that's waiting for you on the other side of this conditioning. Now, here's how I'm asking you to invest your energy with me today. And everything I'm about to ask is free. If this video gave you something real, leave a comment. Tell me what landed. Tell me what shifted. I read every single comment. That exchange is not performative for me. It is the community this work is actually for. If you know a woman who is running on fumes and does not know why, share this video with her. This is how the word spreads, woman to woman, the way it always has. Like this video if it earned it, and subscribe if you want to keep going deeper, because this is just the beginning of the conversation. You just named something most women carry their whole lives without ever putting their finger on it, never putting language to it. The next step is right up here. It will give you the tool to trace all of this all the way down to the root. I'll see you there.